Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Loving obeisances unto the Supreme Being Vasudeva, who is everything there is. Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat. Tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surayah. Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargom mrisha. Dhamna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. We meditate upon the transcendent absolute being from whom springs forth this universe. He is present in all that exists and yet distinct from everything. He is fully conscious and totally independent. He revealed to the first seer Brahma the import of Vedic wisdom. The material creation, made of threefold gunas, appears in him as though real, like water in a mirage. Being eternally self effulgent, he is ever free of the illusion Maya of the material world. We meditate upon him, the Supreme Being. Nigamakalpataror galitam phalam shukamukad amritadrava sanyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. O devotees who relish a taste for divine love, Bhagavatam is the fully ripened fruit of the wish-yielding tree of Vedas, flowing as immortal nectar from Shuka Brahmarshi. Go on drinking the sweet nectar day after day. So now we are entering the 17th chapter of the 5th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw the description of the various aspects of the terrestrial world by Shuka Brahmarshi. Now he starts to describe a very special aspect of this world, this earth, which is the holy river Ganga. So Shuka continues and he says, on this terrestrial globe, which is described as we saw, it has 7 dvipas or 7 continents, and Jambu Dvipa is the biggest continent, the Eurasian landmass, and in that there are 9 divisions or 9 Varshas. In the middle is a Varsha called Ilavrta, and this Ilavrta is the mystical portion of this Jambu Dvipa where the Mount Meru is, which is the city of Brahma, it is said. And then surrounding that there are 3 Varshas to the north, 3 to the south, 1 to the east, 1 to the west, making a total of 9 divisions. And the one to the south, one of them is Bharatvarsha, which is having the boundary as the Himalayan mountains. All the other Varshas are spread across the globe. Now, Shuka continues and says that on this entire terrestrial globe, when Bhagavan appeared as Trivikrama, he raised his left foot to pierce into the heavenly region. So this refers to an avatar of the Supreme Being, which is described much later in the 8th canto, 8th Skandha, but it is referred to here. So this is the short summary is there is a great king called Bali Maharaja, who is actually a descendant of Prahalad, and he performs a sacrifice, and he being a demon king, he is advised by the guru of the demons, who is called Shukracharya, and yet the devatas are said to be worried because he is doing this great sacrifice. So according to the request of the devatas, Bhagavan himself goes as a dwarf brahmana called Vamana. He is very short, and then when the dwarf comes, Bali gives him respect. He is very cultured, and he therefore welcomes him, and he asks him what does he need. And the dwarf Brahmana Vamana avatar says, I need 3 paces of land. And Shukracharya knows who has come, and he wants Bali, but Bali says, I have given my word, I cannot go back, so I will give him what I have promised. So when he says yes, then Vamana avatar, he takes a gigantic form, which is called Trivikrama, and in this form, in the first step, the right foot, he measures all the terrestrial globe, it is said, the entire earth. And then the second foot, the left foot, it is said, he raised to measure the heavenly regions. And when he does so, it is said symbolically that because of his left foot piercing the heavenly regions, the celestial heavenly water from the heavenly regions, through the piercing of the heavenly regions by his left foot, they came through his left foot down to the earth. And that's why this water is coming directly from the heavenly regions flowing into earth, and therefore it is the celestial water called Bhagavatpadi. It is called, that is that which comes from the foot of Bhagavan. So it is coming literally from the left foot of Bhagavan as he pierces the heavenly region, and because it comes from the left foot, it is called as Bhagavatpadi, foot of Bhagavan. And it is described that this water that comes from his left big toe flows down first to the realm of Dhruva. We saw the story of the great Dhruva devotee Dhruva Maharaj, who got a vision of the Supreme Being, and then he had to rule for a long time, conquer all his passions, and then completely surrendered, and thereby he got a special planet called Dhruvaloka, that which is always stable and where he is eternally present in devotion to the Supreme Being, and that's called Dhruva Nakshatra, the star that is not unmoving, ever stable. So it is said that the water, when it enters the terrestrial region, it first enters the planet of Dhruva, and Dhruva is very pleased to get this water, and he knows the sacred sanctified nature of water, and therefore he washes himself with that water, and he has matted locks which he washes his hair with this water, sprinkles on his head, and adores it. And then after that, the water, it is said, flows to the seven stars, which are called as the Sapta Rishis, the seven Rishis, who form what's called the Ursa Major. And this constellation of seven stars, which are always there in the sky, where the seven Rishis, the Sapta Rishis, are known to reside, there it goes. And these seven Rishis also, each of them Marichi and so on, they receive this water and they also sprinkle it with great reverence on their matted locks, and they are very happy. It is said they do not even want liberation. They want only the holy water of Ganga that is flowing directly from Dhruvaloka into their stars, into their planets, it is said. And then from the Sapta Rishis realm, it is said that it flows down to earth in four directions. It is said that the four directions in which Bhagavatpadi flows, by the way, the planet of Dhruva is also called Vishnupada because it is the foot of Vishnu, Bhagavan, that is bringing the water into Dhruva's planet first, and therefore it's called Vishnupada. And the water itself is called Bhagavatpadi, which is the original name of Ganga. And then it is said that Bhagavatpadi, this celestial river, flows in four directions. One, when it enters into the earthly sphere, and the four branches are called as Sita, Alakananda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, and each of them flow in four different directions. Sita flows through the mountain called Gandhamadana to the east, and Chakshu flows to the west through a mountain called Malyavan, and then Bhadra flows to the north through the mountain called Shringavan, and Alakananda flows to the south through the Himalayas and a peak called Hemakuta. So these are the four directions. So it is clear that other three directions, Sita, Chakshu, and Bhadra, are again mystical because they are not seen on earth. Only the southern direction of the flow of the celestial water from Meru, which is a mystical mountain, where it lands first, Bhagavatpadi, she lands this river, celestial river Bhagavatpadi, Ganga lands in Mount Meru. From there she goes in four directions, three of them are mystical. the southern direction alone, Alakananda, goes into Bharatvarsha, and from there it flows down, she flows down into the plains of India, it is said, into Bharat, and she goes all the way to the ocean in the south. And it is said by Shuka here that anyone who takes a bath in this river gets the result of doing all kinds of yajnas and sacrifices, and they are purified both internally and externally. And though there are hundreds of rivers in the entire Jambudvipa in all over earth, there is no river that can parallel this great river, because she is sacred and coming directly from the celestial plane. So this story of Ganga's descent is of course also very symbolic, because Ganga represents wisdom, jnana. That's why it's called as Jnana Ganga. So whenever we refer to the flow of Ganga, it is symbolic of the flow of wisdom. So to bathe in the waters of Ganga is to bathe in the waters of the divine wisdom of self-knowledge. Of course, the symbolism does not mean the literal Ganga is any less so as described here. The symbol and the symbolized are both equally sacred. Therefore, the literal flow of the river Ganga is also known to have even physically great healing properties, carrying so many herbal medicines along the way and with celestial nature of it. And it is so special among all rivers that flows even now beautifully. And anyone who has gone to Ganga and taken a dip in the Ganga can vouch for the instant energizing quality, both physically and spiritually, by taking a dip in Ganga. And millions do that, as it is said here. Millions in Bharat go to Ganga and take this dip all the way, where she flows for thousands of miles from the Himalayas all the way to the Bay of Bengal. So, but it also means that the Ganga is Jnana Ganga, and therefore the Jnana Ganga indeed flows again from the feet of the Supreme Being, who is the only truth there is. And the only truth there is, that is Vasudeva, the Supreme Being. The wisdom that flows from him is the Jnana Ganga, which flows via the great devotees, like, because we receive the wisdom through the life and the teachings of great devotees, such as Dhruva, such as the rishis, and so on. And so that is also symbolized by the fact that the water first comes to Dhruva, from there it comes to the 7 rishis, and then from the rishis realm it comes to Mount Meru, which is the realm of Brahma, and from there it comes down. Now there is another aspect of this which is not mentioned in Bhagavatam, which is the story of how Ganga comes from the mystical realm down to the earthly plane, which is described in detail in Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana. So the brief story there is that there is a great king called Bhagirath, who is a forefather of Lord Ram, and he did great tapas, great austerity, because his forefather called Sagar had many sons, and the story is that many sons of Sagar were killed because of uh, um, transgression that they did against the great sage Kapila, and therefore they were burned to ashes, his forefather Sagar's sons. And therefore he was then they were told, the lineage was told, that these burned sons of Sagar will be liberated only when they are bathed in the waters of Ganga, which is flowing in the heavens, and so it needs to be brought down to the earthly plane. And therefore Bhagirath, wanting to liberate his forefathers, does this great austerity, and he prays to Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is the only one capable of receiving the water from the mystical realm and down to the earthly plane. Shiva being in Kailash, he is able to bring this forth, and therefore he prays to Lord Shiva, and being pleased by his prayers, it is said that Lord Shiva receives this mystical river into his matted locks, and then from his head it flows. That's why Shiva is glorified in, there is a beautiful prayer called Vishwanatha Ashtakam, where the first line is Ganga Taranga Ramaniya Jata Kalapam. It says Ganga flows from his jata, from his locks. So the way it happens is through this king Bhagirath, who through his prayers makes Shiva receive the water into his matted locks, into his jata, and then Shiva, pleased by Bhagiratha's prayer, releases the water from his matted locks gently, because otherwise it is said the flow of river Ganga from the mystical realm into earth would inundate the whole planet. Nobody can sustain it. Therefore, it required the grace of Shiva to receive it and then to let it out gently from his hair locks. And then Bhagiratha, with this great effort, brought this water into the plains of Bharat and thereby liberated his forefathers, it is said. So, this is why any great effort is called as Bhagirata Prayatna. Prayatna means effort. Bhagirata Prayatna means greatest effort. If one is very persistent and ready to go to any amount of length to finish a cause, a worthy cause especially, it is always referred to even today in India as Bhagirata Prayatna, because Bhagirata, the king, forefather of Lord Ram, through his great effort and penance, by propitiating Lord Shiva, brought this river onto the earthly plane. And that is why Ganga is also known as Bhagirathi, because she came because of Bhagirath, the king. So she is called Bhagirathi. And Bhagirathi then also is known as Ganga. So this is the other story which is not mentioned in Bhagavatam here, but it's nicely complemented by Valmiki Ramayana. So if we can put the two together, we can see how, again symbolically, Lord Shiva represents the Guru Tattva, as it's been mentioned many times in Bhagavatam. He is the Adi Guru Dakshinamurti. He is the original teacher. He is the one who can bring this wisdom forth from the Supreme to this tradition, the lineage of teachings of self-knowledge. So even symbolically, what it means is this teaching, which is the self-knowledge, which is the flow of Ganga, cannot be understood by men unless it comes through the grace of Shiva, which is the Guru. So if we receive this wisdom as some other subject matter by simply collecting knowledge as one would read a different subject, then it would only result in confusion and bewilderment. It has to come with the grace of the Guru, and the Adi Guru is Shiva. So the symbolism there is that it is only Shiva who is able to take Ganga, which is celestial waters, and let it flow down to the earthly plane for people to partake of it. And symbolically as well, the supreme wisdom of self-knowledge is only through the grace of the Guru Tattva, which Shiva represents, that it is available for us to partake from, to bathe in the waters of the supreme wisdom, and thereby liberate ourselves of the illusion of ego and misery. So this is the inner symbolism of Ganga. Ganga is such a sacred river, that's why, and literally as well as symbolically, Ganga is the most special. She is called Pavani. She is the one who purifies. She is glorified in so many ways. So just as one can see even today, when one goes to Bharat, wherever Ganga flows, and in fact any other river is also referred to as Ganga, because Ganga is the principal name for all rivers. And so to adore Ganga with reverence, to take a dip in her, to pray to her, is to pray to the Supreme Being. It is not different. If one has the right attitude of reverence towards Ganga, the physical Ganga, one automatically develops reverence to the inner Ganga, which is the flow of jnana and bhakti, wisdom and surrender. So this is the essence of Ganga, which we see here. Bhagavatam also gives beautifully the story from Shuka Brahmarshi to Parikshit. Then Shuka Brahmarshi also continues and talks about how Bharatvarsha is unique among all the 9 divisions. We saw 9 divisions. He says Bharatvarsha, Bharatam, is the only place where karmas have effect. That's why it's called as karma bhumi. So he says, Bharatameva Varsham Karma Kshetram. That's what Shuka says here. Because Bharatam, the land of Bharat, India, is specially arranged for various karmas to happen, whether it is any kind of rituals or any kind of other karmas that one does from birth all the way till death. All of this have effect in Bharat. Now, what this also means is that jnana and bhakti are eternal. That is, they are valid anywhere, anytime. Supreme devotion and the supreme wisdom. Karma, on the other hand, is localized to Bharat. So, one has to realize, therefore, that the the land of Bharat especially is glorified because it is a place for engaging in regulated karma, and through regulated karma one can purify their inner faculty so that they can be prepared for jnana and bhakti. But if one comes to the platform of jnana and bhakti, then the Varsha, the division, the land, nothing matters, because one can surrender completely in any realm, and one can thereby realize the true nature of self and supreme, which is jnana, in any realm. So that's why Bharat is indeed unique from karma perspective, but from jnana and bhakti, it is available by the compassion of the Supreme Being anywhere, anytime. So it is in fact said here that the other 8 Varshas, the other 8 divisions, which represent different parts of the globe as well, are meant primarily for enjoyment, whereas Bharat is meant for karma. And this is in a way seen even in many ways. It is described these Varshas are full of beautiful gardens and people who are very physically healthier, and they are able to enjoy sensual pleasures more, and they have beautiful trees and gardens and creepers and pure water and birds and all kinds of sensual pleasures available, and they are able to engage in sensual pleasures all the time. So this is very much, one can relate to this in Western world, for instance, or in many other parts of the world. The focus is on sense enjoyment, on living from the platform of the body and thereby enjoying the sensory pleasures. And that's what it is said the remaining lands are meant for, whereas Bharat is meant for karma. But that being said, it is also said here that one can live in any of the divisions and surrender to the Supreme Lord. There are great beings who are in any part of the earth, any part of the cosmos, in fact, who are completely realized in this wisdom. And there are those in Bharat who are, of course, also many who are lost in not even following the way of karma, and let alone going to the supreme wisdom and devotion. Therefore, while it is true on the one hand that being born and living in Bharat, or the air, as it were, of Bharat, of India, is surcharged with a spiritual atmosphere and is conducive for both karma, all the purificatory rituals, and also for going within. And this is why many from the West and many parts of the world are even today always drawn to India when they want to really find God. And they go to India, or they at least connect with the essence of India by connecting to great teachers from India, and so on. So there is definitely the great unique contribution of Bharat to the world as the Vishwa Guru, it is said, as the true teacher of the whole universe, by being the land of not only karma, the right action, but more importantly, the disseminator of wisdom and devotion. That being said, one can partake of this wisdom and devotion living in any division, and one can live right in Bharat and be ignorant of it. So ultimately, it is really up to each person who is serious, sincere, and intelligent in the right way, not intellectual, but truly intelligent in the sense of recognizing the impermanence of the world and seeking the eternal, which is the true sign of intelligence, and thereby one can come to this wisdom. So this is described, and then finally this chapter ends with a description of Lord Shiva, who resides alone, as it is said, in the mystical region in Ilavrta. He is the only male there, and it is said, and he is served by Parvati, and he offers a beautiful prayer to the Supreme Being, which is the last portion of this chapter. He says, Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya. He says, hail to the Supreme Being, who is symbolized by the letter Om, and who is both manifest and unmanifest. The Supreme Being is the abode of all divine attributes, and the Supreme Being reveals his divine form, but also he is unmanifest. And it is said, and he also says that the Supreme Being, for those who look upon the body as their self, he is bewildering. They are not able to, they only see the Maya and they are bewildered by the Maya. Whereas for those who are able to see that he is the source of the creation, sustenance, and dissolution of the universe, and yet eternal beyond that, for them he is ever available. And then he also says the Supreme Being comes out as the Mahat Tattva, the cosmic intelligence, which is the seed from which the universe comes about. And this seed, Mahat Tattva, cosmic intelligence, brings forth all the elements, which we have seen the detailed description of the process of creation from Mahat Tattva, which is the cosmic intelligence, to the 5 elements, to the subtle elements, to then the various beings and all the rest. So this whole process emanates from the Supreme Being. And one who is deluded by the objects of senses, Shiva says, can never know the Supreme Being because he is caught up in Maya, and therefore only one who surrenders unto him can recognize the Supreme Being. So this is the same as a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, this Maya of mine is bewildering, and yet one who surrenders unto me can easily cross over it. He says, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mamevaye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. This Maya is bewildering for those who are caught up in it, and yet one who surrenders to me, he can easily cross it. So that's what Shiva says here too, that one who is surrendered unto the Supreme Being can cross over this Maya very easily and see that creation and dissolution are nothing apart from the Supreme Being. Obeisance to the Supreme Being, he says, Tasmai Namaste Vilayoda Atmane. So with this, Shiva, who is the Supreme Adi Guru Tattva, as we said, reveals again the supreme wisdom of the Supreme Being, which is the only truth there is, and who alone manifests as creation, sustenance, and dissolution, and who alone takes the form of all the jivas and yet remains separate from it, and who also within the jiva resides as the sense of ego, ahankara, thereby they are deluded, and yet he also resides within the recess of the heart as Paramatma, the Supreme Self, ever present, and therefore this is all simply a leela or a play of the Supreme Lord. And when one recognizes this play and recognizes that everything is his sport, and thereby recognizes his presence in every aspect of the universe, then he is free. This is the wisdom that Bhagavatam gives us again and again, and here Lord Shiva shares it out of his compassion, and with this chapter ends. And we also saw in this chapter, again, the holy descent of Ganga. Listening to that alone is very purifying, and therefore with the sacred descent of Ganga and the teachings of Shiva, which are quite appropriate to go together because Ganga comes from Shiva. And therefore with this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.